Are you looking for a new obsession? Do you need more stress in your life? Would you like to gain a few pounds? Then I have just the quest for you. A perfect eclair. But first, let's define what that means. You see this? This, my friends, is not an eclair, although it is sold under that name in most American bakeries. This is an abomination. You see, the word eclair means a bolt of lightning, and this looks more like a boulder to me. In a perfect eclair, not only should all the components be delicious, but their ratio should be optimized for a perfect eating experience. Kind of like in a perfect nigiri. I have made an eclair video in the past, but since then I have improved on many aspects of my eclair making and wanted to share them with you. First, let's address the age-old debate of all-purpose versus bread flour. Although my previous pate choux video used all-purpose flour, bread flour works a lot better for eclairs. If dried out properly, the shells made with bread flour will retain their crisp texture permanently, while the shells made with all-purpose flour will soften rather quickly. Two more changes I made to my original recipe is increasing eggs from 200 grams to 230 grams to get more lift, and adding a teaspoon of sugar for better flavor and color. The updated ingredient list and the link to my pate choux procedure video is right below. Some pastry chefs suggest that loading 2 racks of pate choux into your oven is a good thing because it creates more steam, giving you more lift. But before you waste a lot of time and some perfectly good pate choux trying to bake eclairs on 2 racks in your home oven, do this little test. Make a grid of 1/4 teaspoons of granulated sugar on parchment paper and put it into 375-degree oven for 20 minutes. If you can get the sugar to cook evenly on both racks, give it a go with eclairs. I couldn't get my sugar to melt evenly no matter what I tried, including a pizza stone. I find cream puffs to be more forgiving and usually bake them on 2 racks to save some time. But 2 racks of eclairs in my oven is not a good idea because one of the racks comes out rather flat. Although a pizza stone didn't help with producing 2 racks of perfect eclairs, it definitely improved 1 rack. The eclairs baked on a pizza stone came out as perfect tubes without crevices or cracks. So today I'll use it for my demo. Let's place it in the middle of the oven and preheat to 375 Fahrenheit. I usually do this when I start making the dough, since the oven needs at least 45 minutes to preheat. Many chefs swear by the French star tip to pipe eclairs. I find its biggest strength is making the filling holes after the eclairs are baked, but since I have it, I might as well pipe with it. You can also pipe using a 1/2-inch opening and swipe with a fork after brushing with water or butter. You know how your pastry bag occasionally burps when you pipe pate choux because of air pockets? Well, I finally found a way to get rid of those annoying burps. Put your choux on a huge piece of plastic wrap. Wrap it up, keeping one side open, and squeeze it into the pastry bag. This eliminates most bubbles. By the way, the temperature of my dough is about 80 Fahrenheit. I found that letting it rest covered after making until it cools to 80 makes it easier to pipe. Let's tape a piece of parchment onto a rimless cookie sheet to prevent it from sliding. I prefer to use a ruler when I pipe to make sure my eclairs are the same length. Don't drag the tip along the parchment. You want it to be slightly elevated so that your eclairs don't end up smushed. 5 inches seems like a good length to me. When you get to the end, make sure to stop pressing on the bag, or the dough will continue coming out. You can gently cut the dough off with a pastry scraper or a small knife. This produces the most evenly shaped eclairs. You can also release pressure on the bag and let the dough slowly drop. Let's finish piping our eclairs. 1/2 sheet fits 8. With a wet finger, touch up the little tails. Dunk your finger in water between the eclairs to make sure the dough doesn't stick to you. Now let's address the question of how to keep the eclairs moist long enough to allow for a full expansion in the oven. Some bakers brush them with eggs, some sprinkle them with powdered sugar, some spray them with water, and some brush them with melted butter. I've tried all these methods, and brushing with butter produced the most even shape for me, but sprinkling with powdered sugar and spraying with water were runners-up. Remove the tape and carefully but quickly slide the parchment onto the pizza stone and close the oven door. As soon as the eclairs are in, reduce the oven temperature to 350 Fahrenheit and turn on the convection fan if you have it. I find that I get fewer cracks on the sides if I bake at this moderate temperature the whole time, instead of starting really high and then gradually dropping the temperature. But all ovens are different, so you'll have to experiment with yours. Don't open the oven door for 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, check if the eclairs are brown and completely firm. If not, keep baking until completely firm. Remove them from the oven and turn the oven off. Using the French pastry tip, poke 2 holes in the bottom of each eclair, wiggling the tip back and forth gently to avoid breaking eclairs. If your eclairs are very long, you might want to make 3 holes. If the eclairs aren't completely hollow, take a small knife or a skewer and clean out the little dough webs. Return the eclairs to the turned-off oven with the holes facing up for another 30 minutes to dry out completely. If you want to bake another batch, you can do that first and then dry out both batches together. But make sure to return the oven to 375 Fahrenheit for 10 minutes or so before you put the second batch in. After the drying out procedure, the shells should stay permanently crispy. You can cool them off and then put them in an airtight container for up to a day or freeze them. For the filling, I used diplomat cream. That video is linked below. And here's how to make the glaze. Microwave 116 grams of heavy cream until it boils. And stir in 113 grams of chopped chocolate with roughly 60% cacao content. If you want to save yourself chopping time, buy it in chip form. Stir very thoroughly. At first, things won't look too pretty, but in about a minute, the mixture will become smooth and shiny. Add 25 grams light corn syrup and stir well. The purpose of the corn syrup is to keep the glaze slightly soft and shiny after it sets. Without it, it will form a hard shell, and that's not the texture we're looking for. Try to use this glaze shortly after making, since it's not easy to rewarm. After my endless eclair experimentation, I was running low on disposable pastry bags, so I thought I'll use a Ziploc bag to fill my eclairs. It worked in a pinch, but wasn't nearly as comfortable as a real pastry bag, so do this at home at your own risk. For the filling, you don't even need a tip, but make sure to snip the bag so that the hole is a bit smaller than the holes in the shells. Pipe the cream in until you see it through the other hole. Then pipe the cream into the second hole until you see the cream in the first hole start to come up. Wipe up the extras and dunk into the glaze. Rock it back and forth a bit to make sure the glaze is applied evenly. Let the excess glaze drip off. And then flip your eclair over to get rid of the drips. Refrigerate for at least 30 minutes to give the glaze a chance to set. The eclairs will be at their best for the first 3 hours after filling. Perfect balance and harmony. And that, my friends, was an eclair. The links to all the equipment that I mentioned in this video and the additional techniques are below this video. And now it's probably time for me to go to the gym and address the issue that over the past 2 weeks I have eaten more eclairs than I care to admit. This video was brought to you by viewers like you. If you liked it, click here to support my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you're ever in the Boston area, maybe I'll see you in one of my classes.